YouTube, Brian Phillips here again with the ASW-28, part 5 today. We're looking at these control surfaces on the wings. From the unboxing, you can remember where I broke this off intentionally by wiggling it up and down. This is the flap on the left wing, the inboard flap. And so what I'm going to do is I have to decide what type of hinge I want to use. I have some hinge tape in here somewhere too, but I just decided against using the hinge tape. These are too small. These are probably a little bit too big. These hinges might work if you're going to try to keep your... There's two different sizes here. Oh, here's some hinge tape. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, so this is one size and that's another size. So I don't think those are going to work well. And I've only got 3 of these DeBro style, so I'm going to use the Chinese ones. Okay, so here's my plan. So my plan is, these already have some carbon fiber reinforcement in there. So we're going to take advantage of that. And as you can see from my old ASW-28, I extended the ailerons. Now, we could cut those off and just use those and they'd be fine, I'm sure. But I kind of want you guys to get the feel for what we're doing. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to bring these in an inch or so from each end and then somewhere centrally. And I want to actually use these hinge right there and then bring them out like that. And that's going to increase our surface area. And I'll show you how you get the surface area in there later. So for now, I'm going to start doing that. It's a fairly easy process. Use a sharp knife, if you use a sharp knife. So basically I'm going to just take and follow along the top here and just trim to clean up this edge. You don't have to clean up this edge if you cut it out neatly in the first place, but I was trying to prove a point in my video. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to come through at the similar angle to what we had from the factory joint. And you can try to do this with a sanding block if you want, but you're going to find that this stuff doesn't really like to come off very good. You can also heat it up. You can use a hot knife. This would work okay with a hot knife. And then you will have a little bit more material there. But as you can see, it's not real particularly difficult to do. I'm just doing this quick and easy. Any of the mistakes in the molding process you'll see here. Okay, so we've got that cut down. And then the next thing we want to do is just kind of duplicate that process in on the inside of the wing. Okay, so now we have a smooth surface on both sides. And then we just have to go ahead and reattach this to make it look good. I'm going to see if I can take just a little bit more of this material off in a controlled way by doing this. And that worked okay for that last little teeny bit. Okay, so now what I've got to do is I've got to reattach this. Now you could use tape if you wanted. The trouble is then you don't know where it's going to bend. It could bend up here, it could bend in the middle, or it could bend out here. That's why we need to have something that's a little bit stiffer in here. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to get something that's approximately the right size. Now you can drill you can drill these holes if you want, but I found that the drills don't always work so good for that, because they tend to just kind of chew up the material around there. So what I've had good luck in the past doing, just using a torch, and just being careful. You'll just kind of get that angle you want to get. Just stick that in there, okay? And you want it to have a little bit of pressure still. Okay, we're just going to go part of the way in. Now what you can do is you can take and kind of line that up where you think you want it to end up being for gaps on either end. Now you can heat that thing up again. Just kind of slip it in there. Okay, so now this first one, you got a little bit of flexibility in terms of positioning, but then from here on out you're going to have to be more specific. Okay, so now the whole idea is that you actually have made a lot bigger surface. So one catch is, of course, you got to get your adapter to be closer to the hinge point. Okay, so we're going to do that again real quick. Just heat that up a little bit. Just shoot it in there. Okay, and it's just a pilot, just a guide to kind of get this down in there. We'll glue it later, of course. Okay, so now this one here, I'm just going to make it just a real small dent so I've got a good point to start from. Okay. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and stick this in there, and let's see how it looks before we get any further. Alright, that's going to be a really big surface. Now, of course, we're going to have to cover this material probably with a tape again, or some sort of material. But if we ever go for full length ailerons, we can do that too. So now, let's go ahead and heat this thing up and get another attachment point in here. Where's the servo? Okay, so the servo is going to be attaching over here somewhere. So we'll just go here. We just want it to be in close proximity. And this may warrant having more than 3. And I can't implore this enough, guys. That was kind of toasty. I can't encourage you enough in this way, guys. You gotta dry fit these things or you'll get burned. I always do every time I try to glue them right away. Like 100% of the time. I have a hard time even just dry fitting them. Okay, so there's enough flexibility here. I can just bend that out and stick that thing in there. Okay. So now you can make a decision as to how much you want to have this stick out. Now it does look a little bit funny because you're going to have it, you know, it'll be sticking out. But you know what? I don't mind if it looks a little bit funny because it's nice and square and it's nice and clean and we can get a humongous flap effect out of that. And look how much better it looks with 3. Big difference, right? Okay, so we'll come back to that. I'm going to do that on the next one down as well. And so we can cut this off for now. So we'll burn something down. So now, keeping in mind that on the aileron, the attachment point's in the middle of the control surface, as opposed to the top of the control surface. You'll notice where I hinged this. I hinged it as it had originally been designed to be hinged, okay? And remember, we're going to have material there. Okay? So now this one here, we'll kind of do almost the same thing. This one I don't want to break though. I'm just going to be a little bit more careful. And it's probably still going to be nasty. But I'm going to kind of score it. See, it's already started there. Don't cut your fingers when you're doing this, guys. Now, you don't have to do this. You can just fly it stock if you're into that sort of thing. But then you're going to find that you got real anemic roll rate. You can tie your rudder into it and help a lot, but okay. So we got that off of there now. So now this one I'm a little bit less concerned with prettying it up because it's already a little bit better. So this time I think we can get away with just doing a little bit of sanding to take off that rough edge. Okay, good enough there. Just going to kind of do the same thing here. So we're just going to do just a little bit of cleaning up here because that didn't come as clean as I'd hoped. Alright, very good. Okay, so now on this you'll notice that it's quite a little bit longer than on the flap. So we probably are regrettably going to have to do another control in there. It looks like we got a little bit more thickness here than I would like. And this one's a little bit trickier too in terms of how we're going to handle the buildup of additional material in the middle. Because whatever we got to do, we're going to have to bridge it from the top or the bottom. And I don't know how effective it's going to be. So we'll do one of the two and then we'll see how it works. Okay, so now on these, it is a smaller control surface technically. So we could use, oh, and by the way, here's the part number on those. So I'm going to grab 4 of these out. And I don't know if we're going to end up using all 4. We'll do both ends and then we'll come back. Now you see this, we're going to get close to hitting this. So I want to just be careful that we get that right in the middle, you know. See, you can just force them in, but I've been burned by it before, so I usually try to see how it crushes the foam. Plus you displace so much of it. It's a nice tight fit, but I think you're better off to just go ahead and heat up. At minimum, do a little bit of heat so you got a pilot hole. Plus it's nice and warm if it's cold in your shop. Okay, so now we'll do one here, close to where the control arm adapter is supposed to go. So we got about a fist, Okay, so while I can still remember where all the holes are, because these things disappear from you. I'm just going to stick those in quick. Okay, so we got all those in. Now, just like we did down here, we're going to try to do the same thing here where we can extend our control surface out and make it a little bit bigger. Okay, so we're going to grab the cool end of this, and we're going to get our alignment first. Get that nice and toasty. Gap's about right there. Now that time I had to let that heat linger a little bit, and you see that's, since we're not penetrating very deep, okay, so that's good there. Now we're just going to walk this down. I was too hot there, guys. You want to do it a little bit cooler than I did there. Okay. And we'll just kind of line those up a little bit loose. Now that last one I did kind of a crappy job, so I may have to redo that. In fact, I'm for sure going to have to redo that. That's one of the drawbacks of doing that the way I did it. Okay. So now we'll just kind of try to even up our aileron. Okay, so now you can see we got one of these is twisted a little bit because it's making it hard to pivot. Okay, we'll try that again. Oh yeah, lots better. See, and that'll keep it nice and square then. Alright, cool. I'm going to lay this over here so we don't burn the house down. Kind of ruin your day if that happens. Alright, so you can see, guys, we're going to gain a little bit of surface area. Might even try to gain just a little bit more still. This one I'm running into the carbon fiber strip there, so don't be afraid to take a little bit of this material off if you have to. You can just slide that back in then. See? And there you have it, guys. So now we've got our control surface. But keeping in mind that when we run this, we're going to have to basically make some sort of material for this to grab onto. Because you don't want to have it way out here where it's hinging from. Okay? Otherwise you're never going to be able to control it up on the top. Okay? So you got to have that swing coming over here. And I've got some ideas for it, but we're going to probably have to play it by ear a little bit. So I'm going to pause it for now. Alright guys, so I basically got both sides done to the same stage. And so the really critical thing becomes make sure that your gap is the same on both sides. Or really even the gap is not necessarily critical to be the same. It's the distance past the edge of the wing that you want to be very, very, very similar. I realize it's sometimes tricky to make an exact measurement of this type of thing, but in this case it's worth the extra effort to get out the calipers and really actually get it measured properly. So whatever measurement device you want to use, because it is difficult to tell. I've got mine coming about a little bit more than 10 millimeters out from the outboard edge, and then on the inboard edge it's about the same, about 10 millimeters. So if you try to keep them just the same, whichever position you decide to do, that's fine, but you're going to keep it about the same there. That's very important because that means that the one aileron goes up, the other one's going to come down, but then when you're running crow, they're both, the outboard ailerons are going to go up, they're going to be acting as spoilerons, and then the inboard flaps are going to be acting as flaps, just conventional flaps. So now on this, we'll end up doing about 10 millimeters here as well. And then what we'll do is we'll just go through and mark where we need our little hinges to glue to. Okay, so there's our 10 millimeters and our 10 millimeters. And we're just going to duplicate this all around. That's going to give us the ability to help to minimize any adverse roll that we might induce during a crow setting. Okay, so now you can just one of a couple of different ways to use this Super Gold medium foam safe CA. We got some kicker here, and I think what we're going to do is we're going to go this route just to kind of get things tacked in, and then if we have any issues we'll come back and do it a little bit more in another way too. So I want to make sure that the glue is always flowing away, so I'm going to flip these wings around so that I can hang them down off the edge of the workspace here. And you're probably thinking to yourself, is that all the more you're going to glue? Yeah. Which I know seems a little bit crazy, but for now this is all I'm going to do. I might come back, and then when I pull those out, then there'll be a little bit of residual foam, and we can use that as our mark. Now obviously we're not going to be able to put CA into this area because it's going to get into the hinge. So once this sets up, then we can go ahead and pull them back out, and we'll use pops in your hand, on your mouth, or we'll use the glue that comes with the actual kit. So now we'll just make sure we're free here. And so really all we're doing is we're just locking in this position for the length of our hinges. Just run down the hinge point. Just come back in for a little bit more kicker. And then those things should be set to where they're not going to deviate from the position. Because remember, all these hinges are up tight up against the wing surface. So the outside dimension is the one that's going to give you the adjustment. Okay, so we're going to just duplicate that over here and we'll come right back. Okay, so once you get the underside done of the wings, you'll just flip the wings over, both of them, and you will come back through from the opposite side. You'll just get a little bit more of this medium CA onto the joint from the top of the surface. Okay, like on this one I ended up having to open the hole up a lot more. So all we're going to do is we're just going to do that, and we'll just grab our kicker again and just kind of drip along the hinge, real simple, and then that will set the CA, and that's going to be, oh, I would say about 50% better than what the factory setup was. So we're going to do the other side again just like we did this side, and we'll show you what it looks like. Okay, so now that we've got all four of those hinges glued on the outboard, or excuse me, on the outside portion, now we have to decide whether or not we're even going to bother with gluing the inside portion. And you're probably thinking to yourself, are you serious? You're not thinking about gluing those? Well, when we're done, we're going to have a piece of tape or some sort of a piece that goes right here. And so really it's going to kind of force these things to not come out. But it's probably just as good that we get a little bit of glue in there, even if it's just a little bit. See, now you can take them out with confidence. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with this mucilage, and this is the part number there. I call this pops in your hand, not in your mouth, because I had a video where a tube blew up and went everywhere. It was awesome and made a giant mess. But this stuff works really nice. One thing about it is when you get it, it will dry inside the bottle once you've cracked it open, so be careful. So what you got to do is you got to take something preferably that's sharp, and you got to basically poke into it to get it going again. You can use a toothpick, sometimes that works good too. And once you get down past the nozzle, a lot of times you'll get it freed up again, okay? Because this stuff is just, it's kind of like the glue that they give you to put these planes together when you do get glue from a manufacturer. And this stuff works really nice. So you see how it gets super stringy? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and, now that we got that flowing again a little bit, we'll just put just a little teeny bit on there. It doesn't need much, okay, right on the tip, okay, because that's going to get spread out as you slide it in, okay, and that works pretty good. And that will, believe it or not, be very strong, probably stronger than the CA, but it's going to have a little teeny bit of flexibility to it, but only for the first few minutes, okay. So you're going to slide it in there. You see how we have it shooting out everywhere? This is the one bit of advice I can give you. If you're not wanting to put any sort of lithium grease or anything in these hinges, just go through and clean up the hinges as you slide them in, okay? And just do that once. And really, you'd want to pull it in and out a few times to activate this glue and let it cook, but I'm not going to do that on a hinge. It just gets too hard to get them in the right position, because this stuff will start to bite really soon. So we'll just do this to all 4 of these control surfaces, and that'll give us something to hold on to the wing. So we'll just run through this real quick. This stuff works really nice. It's fairly inexpensive stuff, and I really like it. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely no CA. It's not a replacement for CA. It's a different type of material. But it works nice for a lot of different things I've found. And I use it a lot. I use CA a lot more. But like if you wanted to hold 2 flat pieces of foam together, like a wing for instance, onto a fuse, it'd be a great place for it. Okay. You see, just twist that. You just get that stringy stuff going. Just pull it away from the hinge, okay? And this stuff, if you get it on your hands, guess what takes it off? Kicker. Kicker will stop this stuff from being sticky. Now, I don't know how long that is effective, that tool. Okay, now make sure you work your hinges so that they are in alignment properly. Okay, cool, and then we're going to do the other side and we'll come right back. Alright guys, now that we got all those glued in with the mucilage glue, what we need to do is we need to turn our attention to these little control adapters and how it's going to work to articulate the control surfaces now that we've changed the geometry a little bit. Now what I was saying earlier is you don't want to have, normally it's ideally you want to have this pull point right over the hinge. So obviously we aren't going to be able to do that, not and have an effective hinge point, okay? Unless we want to take and put it all the way at the outside, outermost, but then you're going to get less deflection. So one thought I had was to basically just come in one hole, and then that kind of splits the difference for us. Now, I'm not 100% sure it's going to be needed, but I think for now that might be one option that'll work for us. And so these things come with a nice little setup. The Volantex guys, they sent us a screwdriver even. I think this might be the FMS one I keep too, but essentially what you're going to do is the flaps are not going to be as critical. If you're moving your flaps up and using like as a full-length aileron, then you probably wouldn't need to extend these, but I'm just not setting it up that way. Okay, so we're going to try this first. We'll see what type of success we have. And it would be way better to bridge over the top of that carbon fiber rod. So I don't know, I'm going to have to think about this if I like that. But you can see that we've lined up, you know, pretty close to where that hinge point is. The problem is it's going to be allowed to play more. Now we can put this backer plate on here and we can squeeze that down pretty good. And if we go into one of these inside holes, we get a lot of play out of this thing. But I'm a little bit nervous about the way that's going to turn out. So I don't know. For now, I'm sort of thinking maybe we'll just go here for now and we'll see how it goes, and we'll see if we do have a problem, and we'll just do it temporarily so that we don't have a major mechanical issue. So we'll pause it while we get these 4 screws in that backer on, because we're running short on time. Okay, so we got this screwed in here. Screws go through the bottom here, and they come up into this backer plate, and there's even a little extra foam to hold that thing true and square, and or to relieve so that all the screws are the same length. Really nice. Put a couple extension cords in here just to reach back to the plane, and what we can do is we can temporarily hook up our control surfaces if we wanted to for easy testing, because here in a minute we're going to want to hook up our receiver, and we'll go ahead and start centering the control surfaces as we do this. Now you can use a servo tester if you like. I don't. I have a servo tester and I've had problems with it. Okay, so those things are coming in handy already. So we'll just pop out Pat, and we'll just go ahead and hook up whatever ones we got here. Okay, so it looks like, well, that's interesting. So evidently at Volantex they were having a bad day because they taped, these are both Y cables. I suppose they channel 3, channel 4, and they're numbered on here. But these are both Y cables, and in my application I'm going to have flaperons and flaps. That means I need 3 channels, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so one of these is going to go straight back to the receiver in my case. So, but for today, or for the testing purposes, I should be able to just grab this Y split that's up in there, and I can bring that back to my receiver. So we'll get those hooked up in just a second here. But it looks like, guys, we're about out of time on this video. So thanks for watching. Come back for more. This is I believe this is part 5 now. Part 6 will come back and we'll get this going. Thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Click the bell for notifications and check the description below. Help support our affiliates. And you can support our channel in the same way.